This week on London Real, we have Joe Cross, creator of the award-winning documentary Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead.
Time bomb waiting to explode. I was thinking that the boats and the cars and the watches and they were more important than the micronutrients and the blood pressure and the cholesterol. I didn't consume life. I consumed dead and recently dead. Juicing is drinking water filtered through plants. So I locked myself up in what I'm calling fruit and veggie prison. After 5 months, no more medication, 100 pounds down, felt the best I'd ever felt in my life.
London Real presents Joe Cross, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead.
You should love your plants more. Don't turn your back on Mother Nature.
London Real Academy. Build the best you.
See, you all have a lot of dots, but none of you know how to connect the motherfuckers. And the only way you connect the fuckers is by doing stuff.
Am I living in alignment to the way I want to be living? And there's a feeling you get if you're not.
A community of action-oriented people that will keep you accountable to your goals. Sign up now for a free 30-day trial. London Real Set Design by Timothy Olton. I am here in London's historic Covent Garden. That's the Opera House right behind me. And today I'm going to talk to a man named Joe Cross, also known as Joe the Juicer. And Joe would have been coming on your screen when you saw him in a movie called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, where he went from an extremely overweight, out of shape, over-consuming Aussie into a very slim man by only juicing while he traveled across America. And it was a film that was seen over 20 million times, and it turned Joe Cross into Joe the Juicer. And now he really travels the world talking about juicing and the benefits of juicing, because he was really dead. He had an autoimmune disease that was killing him from the inside. He didn't know that what he was eating or his lifestyle was actually ripping him open. And he really went back to the basics and really figured out a lot of this himself. And so he's a really interesting guy, really deep. And with the new studio format with the low chairs, I feel like we really got inside his head and got a new perspective on Joe. So I'm super excited to have him on. He talked about all sorts of things, including the difference between juicing and blending, and a lot of things that I didn't really know, because when I used to make my kale shakes, I blended them. It was all about Vitamix. But he explained to me why sometimes a juicer is good, because you can't get all the nutrients you would normally need because of the pulp, and how pulp doesn't really do anything for you. Sure, it helps with digestion and things like that, but the nutritional value isn't there, and it can get in the way of you absorbing nutrients. So, so great to have Joe there. Really interesting guy. His success secrets as well. Really fascinating, to listen to a guy who publishes books and is on the road and really just sells himself. It's more than just a documentary for someone like Joe. He really is out there promoting, doing the hard work. I think he was on like a 22-day book tour that was then going to America. All of my guests on London Real, they work so hard behind the scenes, sometimes we just don't see it. And so that's one of my great takeaways from the show. So I hope you love Joe. I hope you love the new episode. We're raising our game over here at London Real in a huge way. And that's happening in the studio with me, and of course at the Academy. The London Real Academy is something that's really been on the back of my mind for the last 4 years, and it's a place where you can build the best you. It's where us as a tribe can make each other better, action-oriented, accountable, but also come with a lot of love and allow you to be vulnerable. So it's a fantastic place. You can click on the link below and go check it out. I've just introduced a 30-day free trial, so you can have your money back if you're not happy, but I know you will be. But come on in, try it out for 30 days and see how you like it. Everyone's feedback is tremendous. It's amazing. They love it. We have a social network on there that's sick, and people are meeting each other all over the world. I'm doing webinars every week. I'm talking about how to manage your money, how to meditate, how to train, all that good stuff. So it's all over there. Come join me. It's it's kind of feeling like my life's work, and the connection I'm feeling is so good. I used to get great connection with you guys kind of on YouTube and Twitter, but this is a next level. You know, I get these private messages, people pouring out their souls, and I'm just trying to help them in any way. So come check us out. I hope you like the show, and now I leave you with Mr. Joe Cross, aka Joe the Juicer. London Real, sponsored by Bulletproof. LondonReal.tv is brought to you by Squarespace. Use the code LONDON for 10% off. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Mr. Joe Cross, who is a filmmaker, entrepreneur, author, and wellness advocate who directed, produced, and was the subject of the award-winning documentary Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, which has been seen by more than 20 million people around the world, as well as its sequel, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead 2. You wrote the New York Times bestseller, The Reboot with Joe Juice Diet book, which is credited with having accelerated the plant-based eating movement. Joe, thanks so much for being here. Welcome to London Real.
Thanks very much, Brian. It's great to be here, mate.
You know, there's so many things I want to ask you about the movies, the books, you know, the movement, but there's one quote that really stuck out in my mind from you, and I'm just going to read it out because I think a lot of people can relate to where you were at the time. So I'm going to start, and you said, "The night before my 40th birthday, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the bloke staring back at me, more than 100 pounds overweight, loaded up on medication to manage a chronic autoimmune disease. I finally realized it was my own excessive behavior over the past 20 years, too much junk food, too many sweets, too much alcohol, tobacco, and stress that had got me in this mess. I had squandered my health in the pursuit of wealth, and that was a very, very tough thing to acknowledge." That's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Well, I'm 48 now, and that was, as you said, it was actually the morning of my 40th birthday is when that happened. I'd been out to celebrate the night before, and you know, I'd had probably 10 beers, 10 pints if you like. I'd had probably 2 bottles of wine, half a bottle of vodka, 2 packets of cigarettes, and enough Chinese food for probably half of China. And, you know, that was the welcome to 40 Joe. Go out, smash yourself, hammer yourself, wake up, go to the medicine jar, take pills for a chronic, you know, autoimmune disease that I'd had for 8 long years. I was pre-diabetic, I was high cholesterol, high blood pressure. Bottom line, Brian, is that I was a time bomb waiting to explode. Hence the, you know, the honest conversation that day in the mirror. And I don't know what caused it. You know, people have often asked me why then, why not the week before, why not the month before? And, you know, as Oprah would say, it's the aha moment, and that was my aha moment. And I think it comes down basically to probably a bit of vanity in that, you know, I had a 4 in front of my birthday. I was all of a sudden 40, the big 40, and it just seemed like only yesterday that I was 20, that I was running around, playing rugby, rowing, running, you know, my rib cage was very evident, abs were present, I was fit, I was healthy, I was strong, I was a lifeguard, you know, and, you know, this wasn't in the brochure. I didn't sign up to be the fat old white guy, you know, at 40. I didn't sort of sign up saying, yeah, you know what, I'll take some of that diabetes, that'll be good, and some of that high cholesterol, yeah, and give me a double serve of high blood pressure. I'll take that. That just sort of happened, and it happened real quick. And so that little time machine that I used that day to travel back to see how things were, I kind of used that to go forward and to say, wow, well, if 20 years went by that quick, what's the next 20 going to hold? And that was pretty frightening. That was confronting. That was scary. And I even thought, you know, it's possible I may not be here. I may not make the next 20. And so I had this sort of, moment where I made the commitment. In Australia, we have a term which is shit or get off the pot. And it's about procrastinating. I'd been doing a lot of procrastinating, and this was like, you know what? Enough is enough. You either do something about this, Joe, or you don't. And if you don't, you're going to suffer the consequences. So I didn't know what to do, Brian. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I had to do something.
And you were 320 pounds at this point?
Yeah, I was 320 pounds. I was loaded up on a multitude of medications. The autoimmune disease I had is a thing called chronic urticaria, which is essentially the body has all of us have a defense mechanism in our immune system that if anything breaks the dermis, your skin, if like, for example, a mosquito bites you, when the mosquito puts its, beak or stinger or whatever it is, the bite that goes into your body, your mast cells, right, M-A-S-T, the mast cells are kind of like the lookout guys. And they go, hold on a second, breakage down here on the big toe, a mosquito has just poked through the big toe. So the mast cells in that region get a signal from the brain to release histamine, and the histamine is released and it localizes the potential poison that maybe that mosquito put in. So it sort of protects the rest of the body. It's an incredible mechanism for, our immune system, how it works, to localize an invader, if you like. The problem with my immune system, my defense mechanism, is that it was confused about pressure versus a breakage of the skin. So if you shook my hand too hard, it was confused that maybe 1,000 mosquitoes had just bitten my hand, and therefore the mast cells released untold amount of histamine, and that didn't have a lot of places to go, so it would leak into the joints, and all of a sudden my hand would swell up like it's been slammed in a car door, and my fingers couldn't move. It was like an arthritis sort of thing, and I was rendered useless for 5 or 6 hours, and then I had to take high doses of prednisone to sort of get the mast cells back in check.
And you've been diagnosed with this 8 years earlier, at 32.
Yeah. The way I talk about it is that I broke at 32. I was whole, I was in good shape, I was fixed, if you like, all my life, and I broke at 32. And I remained broken right through until I made the changes. I'm not broken anymore, but I was broken.
It's funny because you talk about this the night before your 40th, and that sounds familiar. I know we both used to work kind of in the financial industry, in futures and trading, and that night out sounds very typical. Let's see, that's 10 pints, 2 bottles of wine, the big meal, the
normal
shots, the cigarettes, and then let's do it again the next day.
Yeah.
And who drops first? Well, you're not up for it.
Yeah.
And so you just get ingrained to that culture to where that's normal.
100%.
Right.
And that's a big problem we have, is what is normal. What crowd you're running in, and what all of a sudden the new normal. And this is, this is a trap that I definitely fell into. The lifestyle that I generated around myself, which was really the focus on wealth, not on health. I like to think about it, Brian, that we're all jugglers, all of us. Every single human on this planet is a juggler. And we all juggle predominantly 5 things is what we juggle. We juggle love, we juggle career, we juggle family and friends, we juggle self, and we juggle health. They're the 5 things that we've all got to balance. And let's face it, juggling 5 things, it's a lot easier juggling 4, it's a lot easier to juggle 3, and 2's easier than 3, and so on, right? So I just said, you know what, bugger this juggling 5, I'm going to put love and I'm going to put health over there, and I'll just, family and friends I can handle pretty easily, but that career thing, I'm going to really focus on that. And self, well, I'll indulge myself. I won't do the spirituality self, I'll do the self-indulgence. So juggling sort of 3 things, I was really good at that. But as you and I both know, Brian, somehow it doesn't work that way. If you put those other things over to the side and don't tend to them, it'll come back to bite you. And that biting comes in the form of breaking. And I often refer to the the way that the world is binary. I think binary is a word that I associate with. You know, you either buy or sell, you're either awake or asleep, you're pregnant or not pregnant, you're male or female, you're dead or alive. All these computers, everyone listening to us or watching us, it's all zeros and ones. And I also think that when you go and cast a huge net against the population of the world, you either find people that are broken or people that just need a little bit of tweaking. I haven't met anyone who's perfect yet, Brian. I know a few people who think they are, but I haven't met anyone who's perfect. So I think we all can fall into one of those two camps. You're broken or you just need some tweaking. And I certainly was broken. And so what I do now and what I talk about now and what I'm focused on now is trying to help and inspire and educate and above all entertain both camps, the broken and the tweakers, and give them a path to maybe certainly going from unbroken or broken to unbroken and fixed, and for the tweakers to maybe get on the path and journey to find out a little bit better way to succeed.
Can you tell me how the movie got made? Why America? Why did you go to juice? I know you did some research as far as what the human body had, subsisted on all the time, but from that 40th look in the mirror on your 40th birthday to touring across America for 60 days, starring in your own film, how did that manifest itself?
So the movie was much later than the change. So the first step was I need to fight fire with fire here. I'm in a bad way. I mean, This is the equivalent of your house being on fire. You can't pause. You got to call 911, right? You got to get assistance. And so once I came to this conclusion that my house was on fire, I very quickly tried to work out, well, what can I do about it? And so no thinking about a movie, nothing about America, all about what do I do? And because I'm a business guy, and I had like 8 or 9 companies at this stage, I'd moved on from finance and I had a bunch of startups and technology and all sorts of things. And I was busy, You know what it's like if you're running that many companies and you're doing stuff, you're working, 65, 70 hours a week.
Right, and you were running successful businesses.
No.
So you had a proven track record that you could get things done. Yeah. You had just never focused on your own health.
Correct. So I ditched a bunch of these things, sold up as quickly as I could. This all took about a year. Okay, so it wasn't like the day after my 40th birthday, I went out and started eating broccoli. No, I was that hungover that I think I had some McDonald's. I mean, I needed to have my food, right? I didn't panic, but I knew that it had to be, the priorities needed to be shifted and I needed to flip things around. So you just don't panic and do it overnight, but I had to do it quickly because I needed to keep the momentum of this inner change inside me, this shift. And so I used logic. I really went and said, okay, in business, what do? We focus a lot on the problems. I'm a problem. I'm now the new startup. The new business is fixing Joe. I had outsourced my health to other people. When I got sick, I went to doctors, I went to pharmaceutical companies. I said, here's some money, fix me. I'm too busy to worry about this. I've got businesses over here. You guys went to college, you went to university, you're the scientist. Here's a bunch of cash. Give me a call when you got it all worked out and I'll come back. Pretty stupid, eh?
And they didn't get it right.
Well, I mean, this is what most people do. What I just described, most people do.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
They outsource their health to somebody else. And so on that day when I decided to bring it in-house, when I decided to bring it home, I needed to have a plan. So I used logic. I mean, I basically said, okay, so let's just think about this for a second. I'm 40 years of age, but really am I 40? What am I? I'm a member of this race called Homo sapien that is a member of the humanoid family. And I'm not really 40 years old. I'm actually 7 million years old. And if you think about Homo sapien, I'm like 225, 230,000 years old, depending who you talk to, which means that I'm a product of 15,000 sets of grandparents that have swapped genetic material to create the magnificent me. And we are top of the food chain. We are it. We are the most incredible, sophisticated species on this place we call home, planet Earth. how did we get to be so damn successful? What did we do for all these years that made us king of the jungle? And I, at that moment, started to realize about this incredible love affair, this incredible partnership, connection that we have had with plants. This bond between Mother Nature and her goodness and her resources and humans. If you start to think about it, I mean, just think about all the things that they've done for us, or what they do for us, from providing shelter, you know, tree houses or timber, tables, beds, chairs in the old days, whatever. Be able to throw a few logs on a fire to keep us warm in winter. The CO2 we breathe out, they take that in and flip back O2. And of course, above all, they provide the total food group called plant food, the total amount of energy, all of the macronutrients being carbohydrate, protein and fat, and all the micronutrients, they're all found in plants, the vitamins and minerals, the phytochemicals, it's all there. The complete guide to food is all found in plants. And so this magic of what, for example, say a cucumber is, in that it grows from this seed and takes nutrients from the soil and the atmosphere, the nitrogen, and then all of a sudden this H2O that falls from the sky, and of course the big daddy in the sky just shines that power down, and bingo, you have this magical plant called a cucumber that is harnessing all of this energy and information for our 4 or 5 trillion cells that make up the incredible you and me.
That we take for granted all the time.
We don't think like this. I certainly didn't think like this. So once you discover or have an understanding from a very big picture point of view about this magic, this story, this love story, this partnership, and then I looked at myself and basically went, okay, what did I do? I gave Mother Nature the bird at age 18. I basically said, thanks very much for all the help you've given all my ancestors and everyone else on this planet. I'm Joe Cross, I'm Master of the Universe. I don't need you. See you later, Mother Nature. And I turned my back on her. I went and lived on this new food called processed food. I went and lived on what effectively is dead food, and then animal product, which is kind of like recently dead food. So I put a lot of dead into my body, and of course that affected life in me. I didn't consume life. I consumed dead and recently dead. And of course the human body is a pretty incredible thing. I mean, from the age of 18, 17 when I left home, 18, 5 years, 10 years, I was good. I mean, I held up all right. But 14 years later, 15 years later, when I was 32, I broke. Because no one can ignore the biological laws of cause and effect. You will break. So because I understood all of this, Brian, I basically said, you know what? I have to go back, knock on Mother Nature's door, and see if she'll have me back. I've got to give this a shot. I'd heard something from a Professor Ron Penny, who was a very, very, very well-known, respected doctor in Australia, and he said, Joe, 70% of all disease in the Western world is caused by our lifestyle choices. 70. And do
you agree? You think that's about right?
Oh yeah, I have no doubt. And what are those lifestyle choices that are causing this? Well, the big 3 are smoking, the amount of exercise we do or don't do, and the sort of food and drink we consume. They're the big 3. And then the next 3, hot on the heels, is the sort of sleep you get, how you manage stress, and how much love and intimacy is in your life. And these are the big 6 lifestyle choices that affect 70% of disease. I mean, it's kind of insanity. So I went down that list and went fail, 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 fail. I mean, I was a disaster. You can't fix everything overnight, Brian. I've learnt that. So I just attacked one thing, or really 2. I gave up the smokes, because that's not that difficult, And I decided that I needed to go back to Mother Nature. And she sort of said to me in a little funny way, when our little chat I had with her over time, she said, Joe, listen, I'll let you back in. When I knocked on the door, she said, you can come back in, but I'm not going to wave a magic wand. I'm not going to fix you on day one. And I don't know if I can fix you, but like in any relationship that's broken, and my relationship with her was broken, that if I put the effort in and I really try hard to mend this and I pay her the respect and I put it in and do the hard yards, that she'll see what she can do.
You're very well versed in this, but you taught yourself all of this over the years.
Well, I taught myself this at that moment in time. This was like a realization that I had been a complete asshole. I'd been an ignorant, stupid man when I thought I was a smart man. I was focusing on wealth and I was ignoring health. I mean, I was an idiot. I was thinking that the boats and the cars and the watches and they were more important than the micronutrients and the blood pressure and the cholesterol.
Were you able to keep any of the peer group you had at age 40 as you made this transformation? Or did they all think you had lost it? Did they think that you had just gone in some strange new way?
I think some of them thought that. I think that, I didn't lose any friends. I mean, my friends are, I'm fortunate, if you like, but lady luck does follow a person of action. But I was fortunate in the fact that I had good friends, but I put effort into my friendships. I don't take it for granted. I put the hard yards in. And so they were a bit like concerned when I disappeared, like from 2007 to 2011 and had no film to show for it. We're skipping ahead to the film idea now, because at the first beginning, I now realize I've got to go back to plants, right? So the plants idea is a simple one. And then when they sort of realized that I was now going to just drink juice, and the way that came about was that because I was 100 pounds heavier than I should be, I kind of asked the question, Brian, why is it so, like, what's the purpose? Why is it so, such a bummer that eating pizza, drinking beer, having chocolate ice cream while watching football puts on weight? It's so unfair. I mean, I just used to love doing that, okay? So I could argue that I still love doing that.
Many people love doing that. Many more every day.
Exactly. So I had to ask the question, what's the benefit to the human body, to our ancestors, to our existence? Going back to that big picture view, what has been the benefit for us as a warm-blooded species to be able to have this ability to regulate our weight by gaining and losing pounds? Our human body is made up predominantly of 5 things: a skeleton, organs, fat, muscle, and liquid, blood, water, whatever you want to call it. And the only real 2 that you can adjust and control and have some say over is the muscle and the fat. You can let muscle wither away, you can build muscle, you can stack fat on, you can burn fat off. And so I started to try and understand this as to why was I 320 pounds? What was going on there? The best idea I could come up with logically, Brian, in all honesty, was just using my logic, was, well, Mother Nature used to give and she used to take away. There was feast and famine. The fact that we live now in this modern day world where there's a feast on every corner, that wasn't always the way. Most of the existence of our ancestors had times where there was plenty or times where there wasn't much at all. And in fact, lots of times when there was nothing. And so this resonated with me, that essentially what was going on is that this fat fool that I was looking at in the mirror on that day was essentially a body that was protecting me. My body was looking after me. So from that moment on, I don't see fat people now. I don't see any fat people anywhere in the world. I see people who are carrying lots of extra energy, and I'm like, is there a famine coming here that I don't know about?
Right.
I didn't get the tweet, I didn't get the email, what's happening? So holding on to all of this energy, my body was saying, Joe, don't worry. When that famine hits Sydney, you're going to be the last man standing. I've got you covered. I've got you protected. Those pizzas and burgers you had when you were 22, they're still here, waiting to be used up.
Right. You're almost reframing the fat. It's not a bad thing or a lazy thing. It's just you're holding all this energy.
Correct. And look, and what I've learned is that actually being fat is not the problem. Okay? Like if you want to just, anyone listening out there who's carrying, 10 kilos, 20 pounds, 50 pounds, whatever, think about it this way. Actually having the fat on you is not really the problem. It's not great, but it's not really the problem. The real problem is what you did to put it on.
And what you'll continue to do.
The lifestyle you did to put it on. The amount of fat that had to be supplied through the arteries, the plaque that's built up, the problems of the lifestyle in the past. That's where we are causing the drama. So then, once you understand this and you realize that plants are the answer and that possibly not eating is the answer, you have a dilemma, because I've got to live on plants, but then I've got to not eat. And so put them together and you get juice. Because what's juicing? Juicing is drinking water filtered through plants. That's what it is.
I'm still trying to get my head around that. Drinking water filtered through plants and getting the
most plants, right? Like if we take our cucumber, it's mostly water. An orange is mostly water. Apple is mostly water. Most plants are mostly water. We are mostly water. Our planet is covered in water. Water is life. This is the key thing that you ask anyone who knows anything about science. You need water to have life. So for us, or for the way that I was thinking about this, is that, well, we all know water's good for us. Water's like the best thing you can drink. It's life. So surely drinking water that's been trapped in a plant, when you extract that out, that's got to be good for you. Now, why has it got colour? Why, when you pull it out, is it green or purple or red or yellow or orange, our 5 primary colours of the fruit and vegetable rainbow? Well, that's the sunlight. That's the energy. That's the phytonutrients. That's the good stuff. You see, the plant, if you like the cucumber, the structure of the cucumber, the cellulose, that's what holds all those nutrients together. That's Mother Nature's packaging. That's how it packages, and that's how it protects from the microbes and heat and oxygen that wants to get in there and basically destroy, consume, or dehydrate the plant.
Right, and it gives it structure so it can get the sunlight as
Correct.
well, right?
It gives it the structure. Now that structure we call fiber. And fiber's great for us, but fiber is fiber. Fiber does 2 main things. It slows down the absorption of sugary sort of based fruits or veggies, and also cleans out our colon, which is really important. But the actual essence, the micronutrients that our cells need, that information, that's not in the fiber. The fiber is the thing that carries it, and that's the stuff that comes out in the water. Right? That's what's in the water. That's the color. And so essentially what I did, if you think about it, Brian, is I sort of had this moment of realization that I needed to do action. I had 6 months of lots of thinking and really sort of going to a high part, when I say high part, like a 100,000 foot view of life, and then zooming in every now and then and looking at things and using a macro-micro view. And I came to the conclusion that with 70% of all disease being caused by lifestyle choices, my issue was getting well. The fat part wasn't the main driver. It was all about getting off meds. It was about staying alive. It was about quality of life. It's about being healthy. That I said, right, I've done 20 years of basically saying, Mother Nature, see you later. I've now knocked on her door. I've done the crime. Now I've got to do the time. So I locked myself up in what I'm calling fruit and veggie prison. I sentenced myself to 2 years of hard labour with fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, seeds and whole grains. I figured that with 20 years of this complete arrogance and ignorance, that take 10% of that. That would be enough of penance. And if at the end of 2 years I was still sick, I was prepared to accept that I was in the 30% camp, not the 70, the unlucky, just genetics, bad luck, blame my ancestors, okay? Wrong place, wrong time. And the juicing part was kind of like going into prison and putting myself in solitary confinement for the first 2 months. That was the logic that I'd arrived to.
You knew it wasn't going to be sustainable, but it was something you had to do.
It was something that I felt that because we have done this in the past, I really felt that fasting was something that we'd forgotten to do, and it was critical and important. Look at all the religions, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhism, Christianity, they all have fasting in them. Look at animals, when they're sick, they don't eat. Talk to a racehorse trainer. Horses can't talk to racehorse trainers and tell them how they're feeling after a race. But a horse trainer knows that if the horse eats up the meal, they're good as gold. If they don't eat, they know there's something wrong. When our little babies are born, there's 3 ways they tell us there's something wrong. They scream like hell, they give us a temperature, or they go off their food. So littered through, you just got to look. You just got to open your eyes and see that the idea of not eating is something natural and normal for human beings.
Right, just not us Westerners or us people used to many meals a day.
Modern day people that are genetically mismatched for the modern times.
Okay.
So I said, right, I've got to do the fasting, I've got to do the plants, let's combine it. Drinking water just didn't seem right. Gut feel led me down the way of juice only, 60 days. I did 60, random number. There was another bloke with my initials who did 40 days. I thought, you know what, I can't do that. I better go a bit longer than him.
Did JC fast for 40 days?
He did 40 days of water.
And,
yeah, he did 40 days.
Did you
40 days, 40 nights.
40 nights, right. Did you consider a water fast?
I did consider it.
Okay.
But it just didn't feel right.
Okay.
Like the gut feel was all these beautiful plants and I can drink water through them. That seemed like a bit more logical to me. Anyway, so once I started telling a few buddies that I was going to do this and I was all fired up, ready to go, a mate of mine said, listen, you know, he was in the filmmaking world. He said, mate, you are the most least likely person to do something like this. Because this is in 2006, we're talking about this now, okay?
Pre-YouTube.
No, YouTube was 1 year old.
1 year, okay, right.
YouTube's 1 year old. It's 1 year before the iPhone, okay? This is when DVDs were big. Remember those things?
I do.
Silver things that are round like this. Used to put them in a player and press play. So DVDs were big. And so I thought, you know what? My mate, he probably talks a bit of sense. And there's a couple of things that could be helpful in this. Number one, there's going to be a lens on me which will help me stay in prison.
Right.
Kind of like the guard,
Yeah.
accountability.
Right, the warden accountability, yeah.
Yep. And also there's also the fact that if this works, boy, this would be fun to show people because, hey, I'm not Robinson Crusoe here. There's a lot of other people that are just like me.
Right. Had you been a bit of a performer at all in your life? Had you felt comfortable in front of cameras or?
No, never been in front of a camera.
Okay, all right.
I mean, perform. I mean, I could always tell a story and tell a joke and, you know, hold a dinner party conversation to ransom. I could do that, but not to the level where I am now or making films or anything. No.
Okay. So you decided to do this film. But you had already experimented with juicing before the film started.
Well, I certainly hadn't done 60 days of just juice.
Right, okay.
But obviously in the lead up, I was like, what's this going to be like? You know, I had a few goes at it. It wasn't something that was, it wasn't a lifestyle. You got to understand something, Brian. If I knew this was going to work, forget the film, I would have done it the day. Like, I didn't know this was going to work. And as it turned out, look, I committed to 2 years, right? 60 days of juice, I'm still sick. It wasn't like 60 days just healed me. I did another 3 months. It wasn't like, effectively, the way I like to think of it is I was let out on good behavior, on parole, if you like, 5 months after going to fruit and veggie prison. 60 days of juice and 90 days of just consuming fruit, vegetable, nuts, beans, seeds, juicing it, blending it and eating it. After 5 months, no more medication, 100 pounds down, felt the best I'd ever felt in my life. I was on top of the world. Like, I can't describe how good I felt. And I was no longer broken. I was fixed. So now I didn't need, in my opinion, to do the next 1 year and 7 months of hard labor. I started to slowly bring other food groups in. Very slowly. It took 4 years before I had red meat, for example. So it slowly, I brought things back in. And of course, the film had a life of itself. You asked me why did I go to America. The main reason I went to America is back then, there was no Game of Thrones. There was no Downton Abbey, and Americans weren't watching anything that was made anywhere else in the world except America. So if you're going to make a film and you want to get people to watch it, you've got to go to where they are. And so I went there. And also driving across Australia, there's not a lot of people to talk to in the middle of the desert, so it would have been pretty lonely.
But it's notoriously hard to stay on a diet on the road. But I guess the movie was about the diet, so. Yeah,
and I wanted to, I wanted to, yes it was, but I also wanted to sort of say that, going across the country wasn't the original idea. It was actually just to go to America. I got bored being in the one spot. I just wanted to get off and go, so I went. If you notice in the film, it's not until the last 30 days that I start to travel, because the first 30 days I'm just hanging around New York and I'm bored, and I just had to get out. So yeah, it was harder, but it was actually more interesting to see stuff and talk to people.
Right. Can you talk about the first 3 or 4 days when you went to Juice, the symptoms you had and the headaches and the withdrawal symptoms? When you described it, I've heard you talk about it, it just didn't, it seems so foreign to me, and then how you felt after that.
Yeah, so I didn't know at the time that this was going to be so bad. I didn't realize it. I now know obviously what was going on, but I didn't know then. So I felt like a big 18-wheel truck had run over me. I thought I was going to die. I was that sick. I mean, I forget the cameras. This is the inexperience of not making a film.
Right, you didn't get this on tape.
No, I didn't want any cameras in when I was feeling this bad. I wanted to look good. I mean, it was crazy, right?
Right.
This was, and what I know now, this would have been gold. We got some of it, but I kicked him out of the room. I said, leave me alone. I don't want to do this. Forget the movie. I'm dying here.
This is the first 4 days of filming or so, right?
Yeah, it's the first 4 days. Basically because, see, our bodies want to live. Survival is a big thing for humans. And thirst and hunger are just two major survival mechanisms that we have at our disposal. Think about this. Imagine if you had a little boy or a little girl born that never had the mechanism of thirst, like never got thirsty. That'd be really dangerous, because that little baby could forget to drink, and when they're 10, forget to drink. So you'd have to have some kind of an alarm system just to remind, I must drink water, I must drink water, I must drink water. Otherwise you die. You go 5, 6 days, 10 days without water, you'll die. So we have this built-in mechanism that says thirst, I'm thirsty, I'm parched, I need some water. We have this built in. That's been passed on to us by our grandparents, by the 7 million years of evolution. That's what we own. We own that. And food or hunger is the same thing. Grumpy, agitated, make you sick, make you tired, make you not be able to focus on anything else, Brian, except food. When you don't eat, your body's going to start telling you who's in charge. Right. And so think about it. If we didn't have this powerful thing about making us eat, you and I wouldn't be here. No one would be watching. No one would be listening to this show, because no one would have survived. They would have forgotten to eat. There were other things going on. Trying to stay warm, trying to hang out, have sex. All these things were going on. Food took huge risk. Leaving family, going out, trying to bring food back. It was a big issue, food. So the idea that you can just not eat and not have any pain, that's insanity. You're going to go through pain. But it doesn't take long before the body says, oops, we've been here before. Brian's back on the savannah, Joe's back on the savannah. Let's dull down the pain bit now, because we've thrown everything at him trying to make him eat over the first 3 or 4 days here, and he couldn't, but it's not his fault. There was no food around. So now let's give him a lot of energy. Let's give him better eyesight, better sense of smell, better hearing, better focus. Let's fire him up so he can get off his butt, get out of the cave and walk 50 miles and find us some food.
Fascinating. It's funny, I had clients when I worked in the city who would do Ramadan, and so they would be fasting for 30 days. And I remember one of them telling me, I was like, how do you do it? I was on the phone with him, we were trading or something, and he said, Brian, I can smell everything, I could see everything, I could sense everything. And I didn't know what he was talking about. And that's what happens when you fast for a little while.
Because your body's in survival mode.
Right.
It's bringing everything much more, senses come alive, trying to help you stay alive.
Right. And so how did you get through those 3 days of pain? I mean, didn't you want to go back and grab the nearest thing? I'm sure some caffeine would have made you feel better, some ice cream or some, a burger or something. You seem like a disciplined guy.
Yeah, well, you know what it was? It was the fact that I didn't think I had a choice, because this was my last shot at trying to fix being broken. And so it was more that fear of what life would be like if I could make the next 20 years.